On today's Pillow Talk, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts before closing. Selling a property is one process that is quite complex. So there are tons of things that you shouldn't do in between the time frame of listing your property and to when the buyer gets their keys. But I will just sum up 3. So here are 3 things that you should not do, sellers, when you are selling your home. You really don't realize how many things you have until you sell your home. At this state, you go through years, if not decades, of things that you haven't looked at. So let me tell you a little bit of a personal situation. Not personal to me, but personal to my client. They were working very hard to purge the entire house of things they no longer need. And it turns out an appliance broke. So what did they do? They decided to throw it out. Now, the buyers came along who had already purchased the property, and they had 2 buyer revisits. On their last visit, aka 5 days before closing, they realized that appliance was no longer there. You really can't do that. Why? Because contractually, it's in the contract. So when you are purchasing your house, don't just willy-nilly throw out things. Point number 2, in the agreement of purchase and sale, there is an area called title search. This brings me to another real life example. Now, what happens with the title search is when a buyer purchases a property, the lawyer has a specified time frame to check the title to make sure there are no encumbrances on the property. No liens, no outstanding bills, nada. Now, in this particular case, that wasn't what was actually happening. What happened is I had the luck of having my for sale sign on the lawn, and a contractor drove by, saw my sign, saw that the home sold, and decided to call me. Why, you might ask? Because when my client was doing construction on the house, they rented one of those big bins. And it turns out my client never paid them for the bin. So now that the house sold, the contractor was contacting me to say, hey, listen, I saw the sign, I know it's sold, and just so you're aware, they haven't paid the bill. So if they do not pay the bill, before you can close on the house, I will put a lien on the property. So in a very roundabout way, point number 2 is all about liens on the property and making sure everything is clear of liens, voids, bills, encumbrances, all of that jazz. It will make it hard to close. Make sure it's all done. That's point number 2. Although the first 2 points were just kind of things that you should never do, point number 3 is something that has to be carefully navigated. And that is, when should your closing date be? And what I mean by that is strategizing. If you have one date where you're going to be out of your property and you close on that property, so let's say you're selling a place to move into another place, just be aware the funds may not come the same day. So to close one property and move into another on the same day, that may not be feasible. So you're going to want to think of the logistics of what you do financially. Can you bridge your mortgage for 2 days? Just in case something doesn't go as planned. Because if you default and you can't actually close, let's say that on one hand, let's just make up names. Let's say Timmy sells his house in Hamilton, and Timmy's buyers are supposed to close on August 1st, okay? Now Timmy goes to St. Catharines and he buys, so he's a buyer and a seller. And he's like, great, I'll move into my house, my new house in St. Catharines, August 1st. If Timmy's buyers default, he now can't move into his new house in St. Catharines. So you need a buffer room. So what that means for Timmy in exchange is Timmy's sellers in St. Catherine, now that he can't close, they want to sue him for damages because Timmy's buyers cannot close. So you do want to get strategic and either do something with your mortgage, whether that means bridge your mortgage, do something just to give yourself buffer room, okay? Oh, one last thing. Do not close on a Friday. Don't do it. I've never done it. Don't do it. Still don't do it. So that's a talk, a strategy, and a game plan for another day. But I'm hoping I opened up your eyes a little bit to some of the things that you definitely should not do before closing. If you have any questions, always reach out. I would love to guide your process. Have a good day.